no, don't go. Wait, I'm just going to do the scene, but I want a picture of you. So he did the scene, and we had pictures on my phone, and then he chased me around the towers on his phone and everything. Then he did another scene on his own with Rachel Talley, who was the director, and he did a scene with a flower, and then cut, and he turned and he pointed to me and said, without him and his doctor, Patrick Troughton, we wouldn't be here working today. Yeah. And they gave me a round of applause. And he didn't have to do that, because sometimes somebody takes over a job, yeah, that's how you did it in your day. This is how I played the doctor. He was so loving, just without him, his Dr. Patrick, we wouldn't be here.
I mean, he was a real gentleman. He's such a lovely guy. And there was one occasion on set where we were doing some action with guns in this very tight sort of corridor. And one of the other actors accidentally really clonked him with one of the guns, you know, in the excitement of the action, and he really hurt himself. But he's such a lovely guy, you know. He didn't cause any trouble. He just sorted it out. He said, "It's all right. It wasn't your fault. Don't worry." You know. Whereas other actors I work with, not quite the same.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Really nice guy. Lovely.
If I may be permitted just to add to that story, really endorse and confirm what they've just been saying. One of the few occasions when I actually was in the studio on set when Peter was working was the two-part Dalek story at the beginning of his second season. And as Stephen had done previously, Stephen Moffat with Matt Smith, they had the Daleks from all different eras there. As soon as he got onto the set, the minute he saw them, Peter made a beeline for the 1960s Daleks. He wasn't interested in the others at all.
Yeah.
I think that's why they did that really famous Radio Times promotional shot where he's got all four of them in there, and they're all the very first original silver and blue ones, which is very much like me, so I agree with him.
Michael, have you seen any of the animated with Dad?
Yes, a few of them. They're not bad, are they? I quite enjoy them. And they use the original dialogue, don't they?
That's right, yeah.
Which is really clever. What do you think of your drawings? Do you like yourself?
Yeah, I think the actors seem to be a better actor than I ever was. They're good. Some of them are good. I think they're getting better. I do think they're actually getting better. They're not sort of walking out the room like this, and the facial expressions are getting better.
Hopefully, Fraser, they'll be found. More will be found. I still have hope that there will be a little room somewhere where they've stashed stuff.
Oh, me too. I hope that they'll found.
Well, the guy that found the ones nearly 10 years ago, Philip Morris, is renowned for being a bit of a devil about this kind of thing. That there is a suspicion, and I have to hasten to add that this is only a suspicion. There is
conspiracy theory.
Yeah, nothing beyond just the kind of guy he is. That he might well have found more than was actually released 10 years ago, and he's just held something back. Of course, it's the 60th fairly soon, and of course it would be nice to have something in there. But as I say, there is no factual background at all. It's just that I do know Philip, and knowing what he's like, it wouldn't surprise me if he hadn't done that.
I mean, it takes a while to recondition them and get them up to scratch, doesn't it? I presume.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Oh well, we live in hope. Wouldn't it?
One thing I've been asked to ask you about by some other people here earlier in the weekend is if you can tell us a little bit about your recent involvement with the new immersive Doctor Who thing in Oxford Street, the time fracture thing.
Yeah, the time crack, as I call it. It's time fracture, isn't it? Yeah. It was really quite good fun. I mean, it was a script, and I did it from a home studio. But it was the first time I'd attempted to sort of have a go at Dad's voice, really. And as Fraser knows, because he's done quite a few of the Big Finish dads. It's an interesting sort of journey. Really.
So it's purely an audio contribution you made, is it? I mean, do you know what they've done with it in terms of the visuals?
I don't. They had terrible luck. It was based in London, in Soho, and the place that they built was absolutely amazing. I saw pictures of it. They had something like, 25, 30 rooms where you could interact in different locations. But unfortunately, during the heavy rains, because it was in the basement, it flooded, and it completely ruined all the sets. So they're having to rebuild it all and remount it.
Yeah, I've had an involvement with that project, Michael, and it's that aspect of it that I've been dealing with. So weirdly enough, we both worked on the same thing, but never met, never discussed it, and our elements are sort of important to it, but completely disparate in a sense. So I was down at the store in Cardiff digging out various original props and costumes to use on those sets.
Right.
And as soon as I get back from Chicago, I've got to go back down there again, because of course we now get to get new stuff out to help with the repair and refurbishment.
Yeah, have they recovered? Have they,
yeah, it's pretty much all sorted out now. We've just got a little bit more sort of embellishment to sort the decorative finishes out, but yeah, they managed to put it back together again.
Yeah.
It's going to take more than a float to stop Doctor Who.
Yeah. It was great fun doing his voice, though. You know, because I start off with a bit of advantage, you know, having that kind of gravelly voice, and getting the humour in his voice is quite fun. Yeah, it's good. Enjoyed it.
I would imagine that obviously back in the day in the 60s, nobody would have realised the way things were going to be with all the family we have now. So it may well not have happened. But did you ever talk to him about, you know, how he felt about being in the show, and apart from it being really hard work?
Yeah, I mean, he was a great believer in Fraser Moses, that, you know, when you did the part, you were that part, and it didn't come home with you, and he didn't really, at the beginning, enjoy people going, "Oh, hello, Doctor, how are you?" know, in the street. He really didn't like it, because he believed that the magic happened in front of the camera, and, you know, his life should be private. But, having said that, he got to the stage where, I think it was during one of the ones with lots of doctors in it, he was given a contract for that particular one that sort of insisted he'd do the first convention at...
The Longley one in 1983.
Yeah, that's it, the Longley one.
20th anniversary.
Yeah, and I remember him phoning up and saying, you know, what should I do? I said, well, you've got to do it. And he was ever so nervous in that, you know, talking to the public, but he got used to it. But I think the way he got round it was, especially with the American conventions, he dressed up, and he was the Doctor when he met the fans. So he was active during that period, and when he left, he was himself again. So he felt happier that way. He felt happier appearing as the Doctor rather than as the actor.
He only actually made one appearance at a UK convention. It was the Doctor Who Appreciation Society one, which they titled it Nocturne, and a few years later I actually ended up becoming the organiser of it, but I was there just as a member of the fan club at that time.
Was that on the South Coast?
Yes, in Brighton. It was at the Metropole in Brighton.
Yeah, and it was called...
Panopticon.
Panopticon, that's right, yeah.
And I remember quite distinctly that the way the place was laid out was it was one of these opulent sort of old-style ballroom settings. Yeah. So they'd have a stage at the front, all the chairs set out sort of theatre style, and at the back, because it was such a big room, they had some props and costumes set up. They were sort of fan-built, some of them quite good, some of them not so much, what have you. There was a panel still happening and coming into its closing minutes, with the audience looking, and gradually it became apparent that the audience was losing focus and starting to look over the shoulders and behind them, whatever. And the reason was because about 5 or 10 minutes before he was due on stage, your father had come into the room at the back in full Doctor costume and started bumbling around doing doctorish things to these props and costumes and everything. And we were a bit worried that he was going to get absolutely mobbed because he'd never been seen before. And as you say, and I would imagine it's because of what you were saying about the way he approached the role. He hadn't done a huge amount of promotional activity, even when he was in the show. So to us, the fact that he was there, we were sort of beyond excited. We thought he was going to get mobbed. Fortunately...
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest, I don't think he would survive now because, you know, the attention and all the outside stuff you have to do if you're going to do that role. I mean, it's a major job.
Yeah.
You know, you're constantly doing stuff outside, you know, I don't know, opening places and, you know, doing interviews and doing lots and lots of different things.
Yeah, I do recall that John Nathan Turner once told me that latterly, certainly when they were talking to Sylvester McCoy about going to the show, he said
Yeah.
he made a point of taking him on one side and saying, look, this is not just an acting role, this has got an extraordinary dimension beyond the actual TV show
That's
itself,
right. Yeah.
to make sure he's
Yeah.
going to be able to handle it.
Yeah.
And that was way back then, so now in these days of social media, it must be even worse.
Yeah, I mean, we all know, you know, it's a completely different world. But you know, there was quite a lot of fan letters. He used to get loads of fan letters, and he would write them, you know, with his lovely pen, and he'd send them off in the post. I remember him, you know, bag loads of these things that he'd reply to everyone, you know, personally. And I always thought that was, you know, that's gone now.
I was just about to say, do you actually get many approaches from fans, either in writing or via email or electronic means about
Certainly
either
email,
him
yeah.
or your own involvement with it?
I've not had a letter, a written letter, for goodness knows how long. I don't know, from anyone. I mean, it's always email, isn't it, and other methods.
Are you on social media platforms as well? Facebook,
Yeah.
things like that?
Yeah. I mean, in the end, it's you know, it's a promotional platform. It's communication as well with friends, and you know, you have to join in, really, don't you? Or else, you know, you just get left behind.
Michael, have you got... I never realised that Dad was such a wonderful painter. Have you got any of his paintings?
Yeah, Joe and David's got some, and I think the other side of the family has as well. I never got one, I don't think, and I can't really know the reason why. Because towards the end of his life, I was living quite close to him. I used to live in St Margaret's in Twickenham, which is a suburb of London, very leafy, right by the River Thames. And Dad lived literally probably about 10 minutes away. And it was really good because I think I got to know him more then than I did throughout most of his life, really. Because when I was younger, he was more like an uncle who came round to visit. You know, because it was a shared family. He had another family as well. But he was good. He came round. But I never really connected with him until later on, really. And we used to play golf together. We'd talk about, you know, what roles we'd done, and you know, if I'd been on the telly, he'd be telling me various things, you know, what he thought was good, what was bad, and I did the same to him. And he became much more of a father figure then, which is sad, really, because he died too young. He really did. I mean, there's a lot more. There's a hell of a lot more in him, really, acting-wise, and you know, developing the relationship. But there you go. That's what happens. Yeah.
To what extent do you think your own decision to go into acting was influenced by the fact that he was an actor, or was it simply
Totally. Yeah, totally. I enjoy science, I must admit. I did a number of science, you know, examinations when I was younger, and I thought maybe I'd go to university. But to be honest, I got a summer holiday at the London Palladium in London, and it was a simple job. It was a stagehand. And it was only for the summer holidays. And Tommy Cooper, quite a famous comedian, UK comedian, and Clive Dunn and Anita Harris. And it was a sort of summertime kind of entertainment, really, for the summer. And the minute I did that job, I was hooked, really. The excitement and, you know, just even being a backstage guy, you know, it was really exciting. And from that point on, I followed in David's footsteps. We both went to the same... we didn't go to acting school, we went to a theatre. In the old days, you could join a rep and you know, learn that way. And that's how we did it. But you're right, he was hooked.
I must confess that having heard stories of rep from some of the other people involved with Doctor Who I've been privileged to meet, including in particular John Pertwee, It's something I would have loved to been able to see. It sounds like an absolutely fascinating training and grounding.
Yeah, Michael's there, is he? He'd be able to tell you about the rep system.
Right, okay. Could I just talk to you for a second, Fraser? Because, I mean, you actually worked with Patrick before Doctor Who, didn't you?
Yeah, in Smuggler's Bay.
And would you say that he sort of working with him influenced the way you approached your career?
Well, I first got the name Patrick Troughton from my brother Roy Hines, who was an actor, and we obviously were living together, and he came back and said, I've just done a TV show with this wonderful actor called Patrick Troughton. I hope you get to meet with him one day. He's a really lovely actor. And literally about 2 years later, I was doing Smuggler's Bay, and Dad came in playing Ratsy, an old smuggler. I mean, I was the star of the show, and your dad had like half the scene or whatever. And then 2 years later, he was the star of Doctor Who, and I was coming in as Jamie, you know, with a cough and a spit, so to speak. But no, I'd heard the word Patrick Troughton from my brother Roy, first of all.
You really have a tremendously diverse career. And this is more really for you, Michael, and the audience. I'm not sure to what extent that you appreciate this, guys, but I feel the need to say it anyway. Back in the mid-1970s, Terry Nation, who was quite a prolific screenwriter who started in the UK and then moved over to America towards the end of the 70s, came up with a, ironically enough, pandemic-related drama series called Survivors, the idea being that a COVID-type plague escapes from a laboratory, but they don't get a cure and vaccines for it. It decimates the world's population and so on and so on. But in I think it might have been series 2 rather than series 1, at the beginning of the episode I was watching it, and I was delighted to see your father, Michael, full beard and the whole bit, with a barge, I believe, walking down the canal, and I thought,
that's right, yeah.
Fantastic, Patrick Troughton's in this, and within 5 minutes he was dead. And I felt so cheated. And
it's like the Omen. It's like the Omen.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, but the thing is, what's interesting about that, you know, is because when I ask people about, you know, what shows and things, you know, he thought he was really good in, and what do you really like about, you know, these particular shows, they always come up with the Omen. But he was only in it for about 10 minutes at the beginning. So, you know, he must have made such an impact. And it was a great death as well.
Did you see him the other day in Sir Francis Drake on TV?
Yeah, well, I know of them.
Play a Portuguese leader of the opposition. Yeah.
It was, you see, in the